the real estate deal that convinced me I was wasting my time sitting in a corporate job. So, here's a quick story. So, initially, I was just buying properties off the MLS and turning them into rentals, and they were all meeting like the 1% rule, roughly. So, nothing like too crazy on the cash flow. They're a little bit better than the 1%, but they were just good rentals, right? So, eventually, the market kept rising and rising and rising, and I wasn't able to get those properties anymore. So, there were no wholesalers bringing deals, nothing like that was happening. I wasn't seeing any deals, so I decided, I went to this like seminar with this lady. I don't remember what her name was, but I think my buddy Rob was with me, and she had this horsey letter, and she talked about how she bought all these properties using her horsey letter, and it was just like two horses in the background and whatever the letter said, right? So she gave everyone the letter, so I typed it up, and I made mine an American flag, of course. And I sent out, I forget how many it was either 1,000 or 2,000 just in that market that I was buying. And I ended up getting a whole bunch of calls. One of the calls was a guy who had a lot, but what I thought at first was a house. And the guy, for some reason, I just thought it was a house, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. So I go and look at it. I find out it's a lot, so I wasn't really paying. I didn't know what I was doing, right? So come to find out, it's an actual just bare lot. The guy had the house bulldozed. He inherited the house, and it was just so run down. They just like leveled it, right? It was like a 50 by 150 lot, right? So it's a small lot, but there are a lot of new builds going on in the area. So I wasn't really very excited at first. I looked at comps and I was like, oh, that's stupid. It's like worth like, I don't know, 110 or 120. So like the dude wants 100 for it. So it was like barely anything there to make any money off of, right? And barely anything there because if I were to buy it for 100 and I were to list it and sell it on the market, by the time you pay your closing fees and commission, you're making nothing, right? And you pay for the money that you're borrowing, all so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So I wasn't very excited about it. Then I reached out to some people that actually built in that area. They're like, yeah, that should be worth like 130 and 100. I think they said like 130 to like 140. So I was like, okay, so that's like 10, 20 grand profit. Not bad. That's cool. And then I did some research on building, and then I can make a video about why I did not decide to build on it. So I kind of just threw it out there, right? And as luck were to have it, I ended up finding a buyer that actually was a builder in that area, and they bought that lot for 165. So you can do the math. I got the lot for 100. I sold it for 165, surprisingly. I was not expecting to be able to sell for that much, but it was very hard to find lots, right? People were buying houses for 165, having to spend 15 to 20, I don't know, maybe 10 grand to demolish them and start their new builds, right? So having an empty lot that's like a blank canvas was a lot easier for these guys. So it worked out. So why did this convince me that I was wasting my time in my corporate job? So if you think about how long it took me, so this actually took me a longer time because I actually hand wrote the addresses and the return addresses. So like on 1,000 or 2,000 or how many many letters it was. So I don't know, say that took me, I don't know, 20 hours to do those. And then I screened phone calls maybe for another 5. I talked to the guy, I don't know, let's call it 4 hours and another some hours. So let's just say in total I had like 40 hours into making that amount of money. 40 hours. And in my corporate job, in a week, I'd make, I don't know, after taxes and insurance and all the other 401ks and all that, I was probably getting like, I don't know, 5 or 6 ish grand, somewhere around there, right? A month for 40 hours that were just not as fun as this, right? So I was still working my corporate job, and I was like, all right, so I just made all this money doing something I enjoyed for literally a quarter of the time that, or not even a quarter, for 1/12 of the time that I spend at my job. So that is pretty much when, like, it just kind of like clicked, and I was like, hey, you know what? No matter how hard I work in corporate, no matter what I do, no matter whose back I stroke and how buddy I am with whatever manager and how high I get in the company, I'm never gonna get checks that big, right? No matter what. So that's when I kind of decided, like, okay, I can definitely get checks that big in real estate, but I'll never get checks that big working, obviously, for someone else in corporate. So that's pretty much what convinced me that, corporate wasn't right for me. And there are so many more opportunities out there, and that are so much more fun and fulfilling than working at a corporate job, right? In an office, in a cubicle, dealing with the office and cubicle stuff that we all have to deal with, or might not have to deal with. But anyway, so that was pretty much the thing that convinced me. And I don't know how it's almost been probably like 2 years now, and I've not looked back since, right? It's been like the best decision I've ever made. So hopefully this video helped. And if you're looking for something to convince you, use this as a video, because there's so many possibilities out there that it's crazy, right? That if you calculate how much I made an hour in my engineering career that everyone thinks is good, and calculate how much I made an hour, 165 minus 100 divided by 40 hours, I think we can all hold hands and say that it was the right move. So anyway, if you made that same sort of, or if you quit your job, that's something I think that's important. If you quit your corporate career that everyone thought was good and decided to go in a place that most people thought was bad, because when I went into real estate, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's terrible, don't do that, the market's going to crash, you're going to lose your money, you're going to get bad tenants, you're going to fix toilets at 3 a.m. I can keep going. And guess what? Those people are still working their corporate jobs, hating their lives. So be careful who you take advice from. And now we're getting on a tangent. So anyway, if you decide to quit your job, and I'm curious to see what thing kind of just like convinced you to be like, all right, yeah, this is the right thing for me. And it doesn't have to be going into real estate. It can be whatever business you're in. So anyway, hopefully this video helped, and hopefully you can use it as inspiration to go after whatever you're wanting to do, if sitting in a cubicle is not what you want to do for the rest of your life. So have a good night, and I'll see you on the next one.